Okay, in the last video I had glued the Kevlar cord onto the engine mount. I used a slip knot. You see the slip knot is a very tight knot and the little pigtails on the top, so it makes it have a nice square fit onto the engine mount. There's a little groove here so that when I slide this in, the Kevlar cord will fit against the body. Now here's the thing, there's a couple of different ideas. In some cases the Kevlar cord will be in the center here against the engine tube. That can cause, like this, that can cause the cord to be in front of the engine. You want to be careful of that because the cord, again, is not indestructible. It's fire resistant, but too much heat and the Kevlar will char and it will shred. This will try to keep the cord off to the side a bit, but at the same time we got to be careful that we need to have a lot of glue on here to make sure that the stress along the edge doesn't tear the ring off. So that's really what we want to do, is to make sure that we get this engine mount built correctly. Now what I'm going to do is put this inside the body tube. That's not as easy to do as it may seem, and I'm going to show several techniques that you need to do to put this in effectively. And many of these techniques are shown on other videos. I use some of them, but I don't use all of them, and I do have some alternate ways to make this a little bit better. The first thing to note is this cord is 5 feet long, and in most videos that don't have Kevlar cords, you just put the glue in here and stick it in, and you're pretty much done. However, if you have this cord and you try to stick this through a body tube that's full of glue, the cord's going to get full of glue. You may not get the glue off the cord. The cord may glue itself inside the rocket body. It may glue itself to the side. You can have a lot of problems. The simple technique for doing this is just take the cord, and this is shown in many videos, so I'm going to show it here for reference, and put the cord through. And now we can see that we can have the cord held tightly as we insert this into the body tube. So as we insert this with glue in the tube, we are guaranteed that we're holding the cord back here. Now that works extremely well, but we do want to do a few things a little bit differently. The first thing we want to do differently is I'm going to tie a rod onto the end of this so that I can push it through immediately afterwards. And the reason is that if you put it in like this, there may be a buildup of glue underneath this particular part of the cord. And in doing so, it could glue the cord in at a 45-degree angle and glue the cord right back in front of the engine mount, which is what we're trying to avoid. So I'm going to show you how to do that. A very simple way to do that is to take a long rod. This is one of my winding rods. I'm just going to tape this to the end so I can pull it through immediately after I put the glue on. Okay, so that solves that. So afterwards, I'm just going to take this and push it back through. And this is going to be in the body. I'll just pull the cord through. So that makes it real easy to do. The second thing is that when these engine mounts are inserted, most of the instructions say insert it quickly, insert it evenly, with a constant force, don't stop or it might grab. And I commented in the previous video that I've never had that happen, but I've had it almost happen. I was sliding the engine mount in, and the glue in the front has already been put in, and it dries very fast when you smear it very thin underneath the ring, and it'll sometimes just grab the ring and hold it, and then you can't move it. Or if you move it, you got to force it, then it gets out of alignment. So that can cause some problems. And it's all due to the fact that wood glue, when you put it through something like this, when it soaks in, it's sucking the moisture out of the glue, leaving behind the resin, which makes that solidify extremely fast. So the wood glue will sometimes do this grabbing. So sometimes you might put your mount in and it's stuck like right here, and you can't fix it. Again, I've never had that happen to me, but I have had situations where I put the engine mount in and it got really, really tight, and I had to force it with a lot of force. Now notice that I don't have the fins on, because if I'm putting the engine mount in and suddenly I realize I need to put a lot of force on it, I can just grab onto it and work with it. But the fins are on, it's much harder to work with the engine mount. So the last thing I'm going to do is to show you something that I don't see in other videos, and that is I'm going to use the E6000 glue for the front ring. The reason is this is where we got the Kevlar cord. I want to have E6000 glue around this front ring. That will give us incredible strength on this front ring so that this cord does not pull through or tear apart this ring. The ring, of course, is just, it's a stiff cardboard, so we want to have plenty of this polymer glue on this cardboard. See, on this side there's plenty of glue against the engine mount. We want to make sure that this is glued also against the body tube the same way. So how do we do that? And This glue is really nice to use because it's got the consistency of like a gel toothpaste, which is really nice. It makes it really easy to apply. And I'm going to show you a different way to apply this glue. Now the trick is to put the glue inside the tube and then insert the engine mount only part way, like about this far. Then pull it to the side and insert wood glue around the outside edge. And once the wood glue is inserted around the outside edge, when this is pushed in, the front of the ring will come in contact with the E6000 glue, the back of the ring will come in contact with the wood glue, and then your engine mount will be glued in. The front with the E6000, the back with the wood glue. Now, you can probably use E6000 on both of them. For engine mounts, sometimes I see different things, like sometimes they say put wood glue around the edge and just stick the whole engine mount in, in which case it'll kind of smear across both rings. Yeah, that can happen. Again, I'm looking for engineering solutions that are very reliable. Having a polymer glue with the strength of an epoxy in the front ring where the Kevlar is attached, I like that. That's nice and strong. And the wood glue in the back is for convenience. I could use more E6000, but I just use that on the front. The wood glue is easy to smear around. So again, it's going to be a little bit tricky because we're going to insert this only part way. We're going to put the glue in here, the E6000 glue, insert this only part way, insert the wood glue, and then we're going to slide the whole thing in and even this up on the ends. Once this is evened up, I'm going to take this end and push it through so that I can pull the cord nice and square against the body. That way, rather than having the cord at this angle and drying it like this, because we are going to have a lot of glue around this edge at this point, I don't want the cord drying with an upward angle. I want to have this cord drying against the body, and we'll take care of that. So again, a lot of details. Let's take a look at how we're going to do all of that. And the first thing we have to do is figure out how far we need to stick this engine mount in. And it's really easy, and it's really quite interesting, actually. If you think about it, this is a piece of wood. It's a hobby stick, as they call it. You can get it from any hobby store. I think it's like $500 for like a $2 or $3. They're very cheap. I'm going to use this for measuring and also for putting the glue on. Now we want the glue to be, we want this forward ring to be pushed through the glue. So the way to do that is we put the stick at behind the forward ring. We mark this at the engine mount, or we mount this actually at the point where the rocket body tube will end. So there we have it. I know that sounds a little strange, but we have the stick right behind this ring, and we mark it right at the end of this engine tube, because the engine tube will eventually be in line with the body tube. Now, in some situations, the engine tube will be different from the rocket body. The engine tube may stick out like a 1/4 inch, in which case you would need to put your stick here and then mark this where the body tube is going to actually be. Now, we can very easily see how this works. Assuming that we have glue placed on the end, it's going to be placed at this distance. This distance on the body tube, we start inserting this engine mount. It's a little bit hard to hold. Okay. So you see, if we put the glue where we've got this mark down here, this mark was placed just before this ring. So as we insert this particular engine mount, we're going to insert it. And before the ends can become even, this ring must go through this ring of glue. So as we push this to be even, we know that the ring has now gone through the ring of glue. So this allows us to precisely place the ring of glue in the front. I know sometimes they say, well, here's a measurement. I guess that can work. But I find this a lot easier just to say, okay, I'm going to measure this exactly and put the glue on the stick. The other thing I'm going to do is sometimes I'll talk about just sticking this glue in and then kind of like rotating it around. That can work, and if you're very good at it, it will work very well. Sometimes I notice if you put glue on here, if you put it in, it might drip a little bit, and certainly you can't put a lot of glue on here because it runs off. Wood glue is rather runny, and you put it in here, try smearing it around, and then if you tip this up, well, it's going to smear up and down. So again, there's a lot of things that can happen, which is why it's like, yeah, let's use the E6000 glue and do this a little bit differently. Okay, so now I'm going to do all the steps. I've got my wood glue ready, got my E6000 ready. I'm going to first put the E6000 glue in here, and I'm going to show you a very nice technique for doing that. I'm going to insert the engine mount only the front of it, then I'm going to put some wood glue behind it and push it all the way through. Then I'm going to push this cord through to make sure that it doesn't get caught off center. Okay, so let's go ahead and do all those steps right now. I do them all in a row. What's nice about this glue is that you don't have that grabbing effect. It's not going to try to grab onto the actual ring. And the reason this is not based on a water, it's based on a solvent that needs to evaporate, so it gives us plenty of time to work with it. Okay, actually my glue rod, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use the stick that I marked. And again, this has a consistency of like a gel toothpaste. And I'm going to put a nice big blob on there. It's really nice. I can put a blob on there. I can spin it around. I can shake it a little bit. It's not going anywhere. So it's really easy to apply a lot of this inside in a very controlled way. And again, keep in mind when this stuff dries, it's got the strength of an epoxy. So it's a very, very nice glue to use. See, nice and sticky. It's not going to go anywhere. And it just stays there. So, okay, it is starting to run a little bit because I've been shaking it. Okay, so what I'm going to do actually is tip the tube upward, and I know where my black line is, and I can just go ahead and wipe that glove inside. And then I can tip it toward myself, and I can see it, and just smear it around a little bit. It takes about 3 large globs of glue to get a nice good ring on the inside. So there I'm going to use another glob like this. And what's nice is I can just use that black line as a guide to make sure that I get this glue in there in the right place. And I don't have to be in an extreme hurry. I don't have to worry about it grabbing as well, because this glue doesn't do that. Okay, so I know you can't see this, but a little bit more actually. Don't worry about using all the glue that you want for this. It's not going to run anywhere. Again, it's very nice. I put all this glue in the tube. I can shake it around, tip it around, and shake it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay exactly where I put it. And I really like this glue because of that. So now I have a lot of glue in there. I'm just going to put a little bit more in there. Once it's put together, I'm not going to get any more glue. And I like to make sure that it's got a nice, even ring in there. So there we go. I don't know if you can see that, but inside of that, there's a nice ring of glue. And it'll stay there. It'll stay exactly where I put it. It's not going to go anywhere. So that's very, very nice. I got a little smear right here. I just rubbed that off with my finger. Okay, so the next step now is I'm going to put the engine mount in only part way. I'm going to tip it to the side so I can put glue over on this side. And that will allow me to have glue in front of this rear ring. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some glue on here. Keep tipping this to the side. Okay, so now I have a lot of glue in there, a whole lot of glue. We want to take the engine hook, line this up with our launch lug, push that in. And I can feel the glue as it hits the front, and now we're done. That's in there. You see it slid in nice and easily. The wood glue was put in last, and I just slid right into it while it was still very wet. The glue in the front, which was this E6000 glue, stayed put, so I didn't have to worry about that running. And that's going to give us a very, very nice, strong front ring. And the next thing I want to do is make sure, first of all, that there's no knots in this. And just press this, send this through. And wrap this, and then pull the cord through. I don't need this now. Okay, now we can tell by looking through here where this cord is tied, and I know that I put it opposite of the actual. Shift that a little bit. There we go. I'll put this opposite, and you see I actually was able to move this. Even though there's a lot of glue, you still see some of the glue actually came through the bottom, but the glue is still a little bit flexible. So I know they do tell you to put some glue in this ring in the back. You can do that. It doesn't. You can. It's not going to make a lot of difference because we put a lot of glue in front of it. But as I line this up, we can see that the cord needs to be opposite of the launch lug. So over here, you can actually see by looking in now that the Kevlar cord is laying along the side. If I go like this, the cord is not along the side. We want it to dry in this position because we know there's going to be a lot of glue on that front ring. So I'm just going to take this and tape it into position. Okay, so now I'm going to put this on my drying rack. Again, my drying rack is nothing more than an old lamp with a personal heater on the bottom blowing up. And the air will circulate through the engine mount. It'll be a nice, even heat. It's not too hot. It's matter of fact, it's actually just slightly above the room temperature. The reason is the cold air from the floor gets sucked into the heater. Here warms it up a bit, and then it diffuses around the lampshade. The lampshade has a wire hanging on it too, so I can hang things on it. So I'm going to put this on the wire. I'll let this dry for at least a good 45 minutes. And these two are even. Actually, it's a little bit off. I can maybe pull this out. There we go. There. Okay, there we go. And you see again, there is some glue that came through. I don't know if you can see that. Some glue did come through that ring, which is good. It means there's a lot of glue in the front of it. So let's go ahead and put this like this. Let all the wood glue settle down. And the E6000 glue is in the front. That's going to dry. Let's go ahead and put this on the drying dryer. And after this, we're going to work on the fins. Now for the fins, I did cover in the previous video how to do the fins. And one trick for the fins is to use a drop of CA glue along with wood glue at the same time. And all the fins can be stuck on simultaneously. I think I'll make a video on that just to be consistent because it is part of how we're going to do this build. The advantage of doing that is when you put that on, put the fins on that way, you can attach them in about 3 minutes. So all your fins are on. And then the heat rack will dry the fins in like 15-20 minutes, and I can put the fillets on. The reason I'm commenting on that is I put the fins on next, and I put the launch lug on afterwards. It's easier to put the launch lug on afterwards because if I put that on first and then try to put the fins on, as I'm manipulating the fins, I usually bump the launch lug, and I usually knock it out of line. So I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and then we're going to put the fins on, I may or may not make a video for that. Then we're going to come back to the launch lug. The important thing about the launch lug is notice that this line for the launch lug goes all the way down to the end. It goes from end to end, which allows us to use this line as a sight line to line that up. So, okay, now we have our engine mount in here. You see it's going to be incredibly strong. And it's made with E6000 in the front, wood glue in the back. It's got the Kevlar cord. Kevlar cord is held off to the side. So we're in good shape. Let's let this dry.